Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. The killing of 7 humanitarian aid workers in 3 targeted and precise drone strikes by the State of Israel has sparked an international uproar. On the basis of an internal investigation carried out by the Israeli army, it has now dismissed 2 of its officers and has also reprimanded 3 others for their roles in the killing of the international aid workers. But the World Central Kitchen founder and the celebrity chef Jose Andres has said that there should be an independent commission because the IDF simply cannot investigate into its own failure. As facts stand, every humanitarian convoy moves in coordination with the IDF after getting the necessary clearances and the permits. So when a humanitarian convoy moves, the Israeli soldiers precisely know who is in the convoy and what is being transported. Serious questions are also now being raised about how Israel chooses the targets that it bombs. In the tiny Palestinian enclave, where almost about 70% of all buildings have either been destroyed or damaged by Israeli bombs, and over 33,000 people, of which 2/3 are said to be innocent women and children, have been killed, how is Israel choosing what it bombs? Well, according to reports, it has now emerged that Israel has been relying on artificial intelligence programs called the Lavender, the Gospel and Where's Daddy to decide on the targets that Israel has been bombing in this war. Our next report gets you more details. For 6 months, Israel has bombed the Gaza Strip. Day after day, week after week, and month after month. Almost every home, street, neighborhood, and town in the Gaza Strip has felt the devastating impact of the Israeli onslaught. That is being carried out with the use of American weapons. The people who've survived this carnage so far say that they have little hope, as they do not know if their next moment would be the last one of their life. Food trucks with humanitarian aid have been blocked at the border crossings, and what little aid is trickling in has been described by the United Nations as a drop in the ocean. On the 1st of April, at 10:43 p.m. in the night, a humanitarian convoy of the World Central Kitchen came under attack. There were 3 separate precision strikes in a stretch of about 2.4 kilometers on the Al-Rashid street in central Gaza. And within minutes, 7 aid workers, an Australian, 3 Britons, a Pole, a dual Canadian and American citizen, and a Palestinian were killed in this attack. Jose Andres, the celebrity chef and the founder of the World Central Kitchen charity, described these killings as systematic and targeted.
They were able to move in the second one. Again, this one was hit. They were able to move in the third one. In the process, we know they were trying to call. But in the chaos of the moment, whatever happened, they to try to be telling IDF that what are they doing, that they were targeting us in the conflicting zone, in an area controlled by IDF. Them knowing that was our teams moving on that route with 2 armor, with 3 cars. And then they hit the third one, and then we saw the consequences of that continuous targeting attack. 7 people dead, but there are 7 on top of a list of more than another 190 humanitarian workers that they've been killed over the last 6 months.
The killing of the 7 aid workers of the World Central Kitchen has had an immediate impact on the starving Palestinians. A cargo ship carrying 240 tons of food that was destined for Gaza returned to Cyprus. The United Nations immediately suspended the movement of humanitarian aid in the night. A childhood friend of the Polish aid worker Damian Sobol, who was killed in the Israeli strike, said that it was simply too painful to know that Damian had died when he'd gone out to help people.
Damien's death hurts. It really hurts because Damien went there to help those people, to feed them. He didn't go there to shoot at people. He didn't go there to kill others. He went there to help people, feed them, give them hope that things could get better, that it would get better. And they took away this hope even from them, not only from him.
Israel claims the attack on the humanitarian aid convoy was the result of a misidentification, a mistake that was essentially a product of war. But the Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, has slammed the Israeli explanation, terming that the act of killing the aid workers was in contravention of international humanitarian law.
We need to have accountability for how it's occurred. And what isn't good enough is the statements that have been made, including that this is just a product of war. This is against humanitarian law. International humanitarian law makes it very clear that aid workers should be able to provide that aid and that assistance free of the threat of losing their life.
The American President Joe Biden, who has backed Netanyahu in this war by sending the weapons that Israel has used in the Gaza Strip, claims that he's heartbroken. Joe Biden got onto a phone call with Netanyahu with an ultimatum that Israel should change its Gaza policy, or the United States would change its policy on Israel. There is a big question mark on the extent to which Joe Biden would be able to change his policy on Israel, considering the amount of pressure the pro-Israeli lobbies such as AIPAC are able to bring upon the White House. But how exactly is Israel choosing the targets that it has bombed in this war so far? According to reports that have now emerged, Israel has been using artificial intelligence programs like the Lavender, the Gospel, and Who's Daddy to choose targets that it has bombed. According to the Plus 972 magazine, the Israeli army has used the AI program called the Lavender to identify as many as 37,000 Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad targets. There is currently no information about the specific data that has been used by the Israelis to train Lavender or the Gospel's algorithm. But according to the Plus 972 magazine, Lavender software looks at the information that's been collected from most of the Gaza Strip's 2.3 million residents by using mass surveillance. And the AI software then assesses and ranks how likely each individual is to be involved in Hamas or the Palestinian Islamic Jihad's military wing. It is the machine that assigns a rating to almost every person in the Gaza Strip, showing their likelihood of being a militant on the basis of which a target is bombed. The use of AI in deciding the targets to bomb has now raised some very serious questions of ethics. A human who oversees the target that is selected by AI spends no more than 20 seconds in rubber stamping the target that is chosen by the machine. So in this high-tech war, it is the Palestinian civilians who are paying the ultimate price. Those who haven't been killed by the Israeli bombs fear that they could be killed by starvation. Palestinian mothers at this moment are watching the wasting limbs of their children who've been rendered simply too weak to even move about due to starvation. And starvation deaths in the occupied Palestinian territory of Gaza have become a reality of this war. The restive province of Sistan-Balochistan has witnessed one attack after another by a Baloch separatist group called the Jaish al-Adl. And in the latest, on the 4th of April, Baloch separatists of the Jaish al-Adl group tried to storm the headquarters of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps in the cities of Chabahar and Rask in Iran. 11 Iranian security personnel were killed, and according to the Iranian government, all 16 militants of the Jaish al-Adl group who perpetrated this attack were gunned down. Now, Sistan-Balochistan happens to be the second largest province of Iran. It is the only Sunni majority province in a Shia majority Iran. It is also the province with some of the lowest human developmental indicators in Iran. Baloch separatism is a problem that both Iran and Pakistan have faced for decades. In the past, both Iran and Pakistan had cooperated with each other in dealing with the problem of Baloch insurgency. But there have also been accusations that both Iran and Pakistan are also tacitly lending support to separatist outfits in the other's territory. So what is this outfit Jaish al-Adl that has staged repeated attacks inside Iran? And how is Iran clamping down on the separatists on its side of the border? Our next report gets you the details. The attack began in the darkness of the night. Gunmen of the Jaish al-Adl group tried to storm into the headquarters of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps in the cities of Chabahar and Rask. The better armed Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps were taken by surprise, but in the pitched gun battle that lasted for several hours, all 17 assailants of the Jaish al-Adl group were killed. The Baloch separatist group calls itself Jaish al-Adl, which means the Army of Justice. But the Iranians, who have blacklisted this group as a terrorist network, call this group Jaish al-Zulm, which means the Army of Oppression. On the 16th of January earlier this year, Iran had struck two bases of the Jaish al-Adl network inside the Pakistani territory, killing 6 people, including 4 children. The incident sparked an immediate diplomatic spat, terming the Iranian attack inside the Pakistani territory as a violation of its sovereignty. Islamabad responded by firing its own missiles into Iran, resulting in the deaths of 9 people. Iran has accused Pakistan of giving refuge to the Jaish al-Adl terrorists. Diplomatic efforts were made to de-escalate, but by then, the damage was done and the differences between Tehran and Islamabad were out in the open. Baloch separatism in Iran has picked up pace and has become increasingly violent since the early 2000s. In 2002, a Sunni resistance group called Junta was formed to fight for the equal rights of the Sunnis in Iran. Junta resorted to armed attacks on Iranian security forces and civilians. Junta is also blamed for a number of bombings in Iran in 2011. In 2012, members of Junta formed a new group called Jaish al-Adl. Jaish al-Adl is currently led by Salahuddin Faruqi, who opposed Iranian support for Syria in the Syrian civil war. In the course of the last few years, Jaish al-Adl has repeatedly struck military installations in Iran. In July 2023, 4 police personnel were killed in an ambush attack by Jaish al-Adl militants. In June 2023, 5 Iranian soldiers were killed in an attack along the Iranian border with Pakistan. In August 2020, 4 Iranian police officers were killed when a sound bomb was detonated in Zahedan. In March 2019, Pakistan claimed to have rescued 4 Iranian soldiers who had been abducted by the Jaish al-Adl network. There is a clear pattern in the attacks carried out by the Jaish al-Adl terror network, and the most recent attack on Iran's military installations in Chabahar and Rask won't be the last attack by the Baloch separatists in Iran. The anti-junta rebel forces in Myanmar staged an audacious and an unprecedented attack. On the 4th of April, a series of coordinated drone attacks rocked the Myanmarese capital Naypyidaw, a city the military junta considers to be its fortress. The Cloud Team, that is also known as the Shar Hatu War, the rebel faction that has claimed responsibility for the attack, specializes in drone warfare, and it claims to have targeted the military headquarters of the junta, the airbase in Naypyidaw, and even the house of the senior General Min Hong Liang. The military junta has acknowledged these drone attacks, and the military junta-controlled state television even displayed the 13 drones which the junta claims it managed to shoot down before they caused any actual harm. In recent months, the heavily armed Myanmar junta government has faced a series of humiliating setbacks. Since last October, the ethnic armed rebels have managed to outrun several military bases and garrisons along the Chinese border. But what has made these drone attacks on the Myanmarese capital stand out is the fact that the military junta is now under attack even in the capital city. So what do these drone attacks mean for the civil war that's been raging on in Myanmar since February 2021? Our next report gets you the details.
This is an image that no one within the military establishment in Myanmar had expected would happen even until a few months ago. A series of drone attacks on Myanmar's capital, Naypyidaw. As the state television described the interpret attack by the rebels, what stood out is how close to the seat of power the rebels had managed to strike this time around. 4 of the drones reportedly carried explosives. The military junta claims all drones were shot down before they could inflict any serious damage. But the rebels insist the synchronized drone attacks have inflicted casualties and damages on the Myanmarese military. The airport compound in Naypyidaw, which includes both the military airbase and a civilian airport, was reportedly shut for several hours. The well-equipped Myanmar military that goes by the name Tatmadaw has maintained a vice-like grip on Myanmar since 1962. But for the first time in 6 decades, the credibility of the Tatmadaw and its ability to defend its turf is being called into question. On the 27th of March, the Tatmadaw held its annual parade in the backdrop of some unprecedented battlefield reversals that have tarnished the Tatmadaw's image of invincibility. Myanmar's junta chief, the senior general Min Aung Hlaing, tried to strike a reconciliatory tone. He claimed the military's hold on power in Myanmar was only temporary, with the aim of strengthening democracy before elections are held.
Ethnic armed organization groups and terrorist groups, so-called People Defense Force, are deliberately engaging in disruptive action to sabotage and delay the election process. Thus, the military assumed a leading role in ensuring the establishment of a multi-party democracy system in line with the desire of people.
The military seized power after a dramatic coup in February 2021. Aung San Suu Kyi was arrested and her government deposed on allegations that Aung San Suu Kyi had won the elections through electoral fraud. But the brutal suppression of the protests forced thousands of young people across Myanmar to flee to the jungles and forced them to ally with the ethnic rebel groups who have been fighting against the junta for decades for autonomy. The Three Brotherhood Alliance, comprised of the Arakan Army, the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance, and the Tang Liberation Army, have inflicted a series of defeats on the Tatmadaw. Since Operation 1027 started in October 2023, the Tatmadaw has lost over 80 bases, 220 junta positions, and a series of towns. The Tatmadaw at this moment is set to exercise control over just 40% of Myanmar's territory. Although it still retains control of almost 2/3 of the country's 330 townships, the civil war in Myanmar has internally displaced over 2 million people. 55,000 civilian buildings have been destroyed. And at least 40,000 people from Myanmar have fled into other neighboring nations like Bangladesh, India, and Thailand. The odds and the weapons arsenal still favor the military junta, but the ethnic rebels have managed to clinch some spectacular victories, and neither side is in the mood to negotiate.
On the 2nd of April, North Korea again tested its latest solid-fueled hypersonic intermediate-range ballistic missile. These new solid-fueled missiles that North Korea is now testing are said to be a game-changer. Unlike the liquid-propelled missiles that need to be filled with fuel before the launch, a solid-fuel missile can be fired at a pretty short notice. And it is also easier to conceal and move from one location to another. With the United States being bogged down in the proxy wars that it is fighting in Ukraine and Gaza, Pyongyang has made use of this opportunity to expand its arsenal of missiles. Our next report gets you the details.
Kim Jong-un calls this a strategic weapon. A missile that showcases the absolute superiority of North Korea's defense technology. And on the 2nd of April, the Hwasong 16B, the hypersonic missile developed by North Korea, was test-fired by Pyongyang in its quest to perfect the solid-fuel missile technology. Kim Jong-un was personally there to oversee the missile test. Once launched from the ground, the Hwasong 16B flew at a distance of 1,000 kilometers, reaching a peak altitude of about 101 kilometers before making a splash in the sea between South Korea and Japan. Seoul, which closely monitors all missile launches by North Korea, claimed the North Korean missile flew only 600 kilometers. There were angry grumblings in Tokyo as well, as missile launches by Pyongyang often spark a scare across Japan.
This kind of ballistic missile launch contravenes related United Nations Security Council resolutions and presents a grave threat to the safety of our citizens. We have lodged a firm protest and complaint with North Korea through our embassy in Beijing.
Missile experts say this latest missile test by North Korea was focused on the missile's flight performance in the early stages of its trajectory. Solid-fueled missiles enjoy a number of advantages over liquid-fueled missiles. Solid-fueled missiles can be deployed at very short notice, as there is no requirement for fueling just ahead of the launch. Solid-fuel missiles are easier and safer to operate. They remain ready to be fired for an extended period of time without degrading or breaking down, which is a common issue with the liquid-fueled missiles. Solid-fueled missiles are also harder to detect and can be moved around much more easily. But liquid-fueled missiles have greater propulsive thrust and power, even though they require more complex technology and extra weight. It is not clear if North Korea is planning to build only solid-fuel missiles in the future. Even if that is what Kim Jong-un's plan is, it will take many years for North Korea to phase out the liquid-fueled weapons and transition to solid-fueled missiles.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World at War. And if you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, please feel free to do so on the ID that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.